Salam, peace be upon you. Change becomes dangerous the moment we start inventing new words. In this part, we freeze the alphabet, the way a judge freezes the language of a contract. We learn why new nouns like force, speed, and invisible fluids feel helpful but secretly smuggle myths. We install a simple tool. If a word is not in the runtime alphabet, it cannot enter the certificate. And we walk away understanding. Our freedom comes from our discipline, because discipline keeps change public. We keep walking from where we left off. We ended part 2 with a calm rule. Public change is not flow. Public change is the existence of an update certificate chain, written, replayable, auditable. Now we take one more step, and we discover something uncomfortable. Even if we agree to demand certificates, we can still cheat. How? By changing the language itself. By quietly adding new words that look harmless. Words that sound scientific. Words that feel normal. Words like force. Words like time variable. Words like speed. Words like energy flowing. Words like probability is a law. Words like meaning field. And the moment those words enter, the framework becomes hungry. It starts eating everything. It starts pretending it explained everything. It becomes myth again, wearing a lab coat. So part 3 is where we put a lock on the mouth. Not to silence us, to protect public reality. We start with a daily life scene, because that is our discipline. Imagine we are in a courtroom. Two people are fighting over a contract. One person says, "You promised." The other says, "No, I did not." The judge does not ask how they feel. The judge does not ask who tells a nicer story. The judge asks one thing: show me the contract. And then the judge does something that feels small, but is actually huge. The judge freezes the meaning of words. Because if the meaning of words changes mid-argument, truth becomes impossible. If deliver suddenly means maybe deliver. If paid suddenly means intended to pay. If tomorrow suddenly means sometime later, then the contract dies. So the judge says, these words mean exactly this, nothing else. That is what we do now. We freeze the runtime alphabet of Phi 1, because change can only be public if our words are public. If the language drifts, the certificates drift. If the certificates drift, the ledgers become stories. So we say an audio anchor line slowly. Physics does not get new words because it is convenient. Pause. Now we translate. If a theory needs a new primitive word to win, it is not winning. It is smuggling. So if we need a new word, we must declare it. And Phi 1 will refuse it if it breaks the oath. That is the heartbeat of part 3. Now we connect the bridge line again, because repetition holds the spine. Episode 14 gave us the alphabet of certified structure. Episode 15 gives us the grammar of lawful change. Episode 14 compiled what is publicly readable inside Windows. Episode 15 certifies how one compiled page can legally lead to another. Now we ask the listener a simple question. When we say change, what objects are we allowed to use? Not feelings, not metaphors, not hidden substances, only certified runtime objects. So part 3 installs the frozen alphabet. We call it A-Phi1, spoken like this, A-Phi1. And it contains a limited set of runtime tokens, runtime nouns. If a noun is not in this set, it cannot enter a certificate. It cannot enter a gate report. It cannot enter the ledger. It can exist as poetry. It can exist as private meaning, but it cannot exist as public change inside Phi1. Now we walk through the alphabet using another daily life scene, because lists are dangerous unless they feel lived. Imagine we are at an airport. We want to board a plane. We cannot carry anything we like. Security checks our bag. They allow certain items, they forbid certain items. Not because they hate us, because they protect the shared space. Phi1 is exactly like that. So the token checker is gate 1, input typing gate. Gate 1 is the guard who says, "Are you even speaking legal language?" Now we begin to name the allowed objects, but we do it gently, as a story. We say, in Phi1, we are allowed state objects. State objects are the things we treat as public what is the case. We will fully build them in part 4, but part 3 freezes their names. State objects include state package, state hash, equivalence class. Now we pause and translate each into daily life. State package is like a sealed evidence folder. Everything that matters about a window is inside. Passport, domain, uncertainty, ceilings, certified structure, audit trail. It is not imagination, it is a compiled file. State hash is like the fingerprint of that folder. A short code that lets strangers refer to the same thing without carrying the whole folder in their hands. Equivalence class is like the judge saying, these two folders count as the same case within honest uncertainty. Now we move to relation objects. Relation objects are the legal ways to say connected. Not connected by story, connected by proof. Relation objects include adjacency, adjacency chain, adjacency proof. Pause, translate. Adjacency is like saying, this page and that page belong to the same book, and here is why. Adjacency chain is a sequence of such connections, like stepping stones across a river. Adjacency proof is the stamped document that says the stepping stone is real. Now we move to transform objects. Transform objects are where laws will live later. But again, part 3 freezes the words first. Transform objects include transformer, transformer family, composition certificate. Pause, translate. A transformer is like a registered machine. You put in one certified folder, it produces another, if it passes gates. A transformer family is like all approved machines of this kind. A composition certificate is proof that two machines can be run one after the other without cheating. Now we move to certification objects. Certification objects are the paperwork of becoming. They include update certificate, spoken as update certificate or upcert when we say the letter slowly as UPD cert, but we can simply say update certificate to keep narration clean. Gate report, refusal certificate, downgrade proposal, revocation dossier. Pause. Translate. Update certificate is the signed document that says public change exists between state package S1 and state package S2. Gate report is the stamp sheet showing which gates passed and which failed. Refusal certificate is the honest paper that says We cannot certify this change, and here is why. Downgrade proposal is the alternative. We cannot certify the strong claim, but we can certify a weaker one. Revocation dossier is the record that something once accepted is now withdrawn because a dependency failed. Now we move to ledger objects. Ledger objects are where public reality lives long-term. They include state ledger, certificate ledger, transformer registry, adjacency registry, negative archive, pause, translate. State ledger is like the library shelf for sealed evidence folders. Certificate ledger is the shelf for signed change documents. Transformer registry is the approved machine list. Adjacency registry is the approved nextness proof list. Negative archive is the museum of refused claims, kept on purpose, not hidden. Because honesty is not a shame. Honesty is infrastructure. Now we come to the last category, interface sockets, and this is crucial. These are declared places where future layers can plug in, but Phi1 does not pretend they are already solved. This prevents hunger. These include branch set interface, probability interface, coarse grain interface, dissipation interface, energy ledger interface. Pause. Translate. These are like labeled electrical sockets on a wall. We say, a device can plug in here later, but we do not pretend the device is already inside the wall. So if someone tries to treat an interface socket as if it is implemented content, gate 1 and gate 8 will stop it. That is part 3's discipline. Now we install the two emphasized gates in this part. Gate 1, token legality checker. Gate 8, primitive smuggling scanner. We must fill them, not list them. So we return to daily life. Imagine a pharmacy. A pharmacist has a recipe list. Only approved ingredients can enter the medicine. Because if you add random powders, the patient may die. Phi1 is like that, but for public reality. We are making medicine for shared truth. Now imagine someone walks in and says, I want to add a force field. Illegal token. Or they say, I want to add a time variable called t. Illegal primitive. Or they say, I want probability as a law of nature. Illegal primitive in Phi1. Or they say, I want energy as a stuff that flows. Illegal. Gate 8 stops it. And gate 1 says, that word is not in the alphabet. You cannot use it in the certificate. Now we do a trap and correction moment using a very common phrase. Trap. It changed because a force pushed it. Correction. We do not use force as a primitive noun. If there is something repeatable, we must express it as a constraint in a transformer family combined with typed adjacency combined with update certificates and residual tests. That is the legal replacement. Now we make it fully everyday. Imagine a door that always closes by itself. A child says, a ghost pushes it. That is a new primitive, ghost force. We refuse. A grown person says, air pressure pushes it. That may still be a story unless it is certified. Phi1 says, show the evidence. Show the window passport pi of W. Show the domain D of W. Show uncertainty U of W. Show the adjacency proof. Show the transformer. Show the gate report. If you can, we certify. If you cannot, we refuse. Now we run the mandatory stress test, because every part must contain at least one. Stress test. Phi goes to phi plus constant. Spoken. Phi goes to phi plus c. Kitchen translation. If we rename every street, did the city physically change? What must stay unchanged? The public invariants must stay unchanged. If a claim changes under relabeling, then the claim is built from labels, not from reality. So part 3 enforces this at the language level. We only allow tokens that can be checked for invariance. Now we do the intervention split moment, because we must keep this muscle active. Imagine we weigh flour on a scale. The number changes. Did the flour change? Or did we move the scale to a tilted table? This is window change, so we must record it in the passport, pi of w. And here is the part 3 twist. If someone tries to hide that change by inventing a new word like gravity fluctuations or mysterious force, we refuse it. Because that is hunger. That is myth trying to enter. Now we add the first retention hook. We are still answering one question: what is change? And now we understand one more layer. Even change certificates are meaningless if the language can drift. So we freeze the alphabet. Now we repeat our story pattern again with a different daily domain to keep the learning embodied. Second domain, school. Imagine a teacher gives a math exam. The rules are written on the first page. Students cannot change the rules in the middle. If a student says, in my version of mathematics, 2 plus 2 equals 5, the teacher does not argue. The teacher says, that is not the language of this exam. Phi 1 is the same. The exam is public reality. The rules are the runtime alphabet. So we tell ourselves an anchor line. Our freedom comes from our discipline. Because once the rules are frozen, we can build enormous structures on top, without fear that the ground will melt. Now we repeat the story pattern again. Third domain, market. Imagine we are buying fruit in a bazaar. The seller says, this costs 10. We give money. The seller says, in my language, 10 means 20. We laugh, but we also feel the danger. If words drift, trade dies. Public life dies. So we freeze meanings. Phi 1 does the same. Now we speak the Phi 1 runtime toolchain line once, as one clean sentence, because it must appear in the story. Phi 0 certified windows and passports lead to building state package S of W. Then we prove typed adjacency. Then we choose a legal transformer. Then we run the 8 update gates. Then we produce an update certificate or a refusal certificate. Then we write to ledgers with uncertainty lineage. Then we run invariance stress tests. Then we issue predictions and failure signatures. And if broken, we revoke and archive. Now part 3 adds something subtle. Before we do all of that, we must ensure every noun used in that sentence is legal. That is the alphabet freeze. Now we give predictions, like receipts. Prediction 1. If a team tries to explain change by adding a new primitive noun, time substance, force entity, energy fluid, then 2 honest implementations of the token checker will reject it the same way, and the system will output a refusal certificate with a smuggling attempt log. Prediction 2. If a claim is expressible entirely using the frozen alphabet, state packages, adjacency proofs, transformers, gate reports, certificates, ledgers, then disputes between teams will reduce to audit comparison, not ideology. The argument becomes which gate failed, not which story feels right. Prediction 3. If someone tries to treat an interface socket as already solved, for example using probability as a primitive law without branch sets, or using energy as a substance without an energy ledger rule, then gate 8 will flag scope smuggling, and the claim will be refused until a proper interface implementation is declared in the correct later part. Prediction 4. If the alphabet version changes, the version ledger will show exactly when and why, and any certificate depending on the old version can be replayed and compared. If a version change hides differences, the framework revokes that version. Now we give a falsifier. Falsifier. If the runtime alphabet is not sufficient to express some publicly repeatable change, meaning multiple teams agree on the phenomenon, compatible passports, pi of W exist, audit trails exist, and yet every attempt to express the claim using only the frozen tokens fails in a way that cannot be diagnosed as a missing interface socket or scope boundary, then part 3's alphabet is incomplete, and it must be revised with a public migration, not a silent drift. Now we classify failures, because part 3 must teach calm classification. If someone uses an illegal token, we call it token illegality. If someone smuggles a primitive, we call it primitive smuggling. If someone treats an interface socket as implemented content, we call it interface misuse. If someone's claim depends on window changes not recorded in pi of W, we call it passport mismatch. If the claim shifts under phi goes to phi plus c, we call it invariance failure. We do not insult anyone. We do not soften the result. We classify and we proceed. Now we land emotionally. There is a strange peace in this, because we stop trying to win with cleverness. We stop trying to dominate with vocabulary. We stop letting language become a weapon. We freeze the alphabet so public reality can be shared. So we can actually agree on what change is. So we can build a universe graph later. So we can derive order without time later. So we can speak about laws as transformers later. But none of that is safe if the language is not frozen. That is why part 3 matters. Now we end with the required audit artifact paragraph and revocation clause. Audit artifact. What goes into the ledger? For part 3, we write the runtime alphabet version into the alphabet version ledger, including the full allowed token list, state package, state hash, equivalence class, adjacency, adjacency chain, adjacency proof, transformer, transformer family, composition certificate, update certificate, gate report, refusal certificate, downgrade proposal, evocation dossier, state ledger, certificate ledger, transformer registry, adjacency registry, negative archive, and the declared only interface sockets, branch set interface, probability interface, coarse grain interface, dissipation interface, energy ledger interface. We stored the token checker test suite for gate 1, including examples of illegal tokens and their legal replacements. We stored the primitive smuggling scanner rules for gate 8, including a ban list of time as substance, metric distance as primitive, force as primitive entity, probability as primitive law, energy as stuff, observer choice as primitive cause, and meaning as primitive field. We attach the stress test record for phi goes to phi plus c as a required invariance check pattern. We include replay instructions so other teams can run the token checker and smuggling scanner on the same claim text and obtain the same pass or refusal result. Revocation clause. If any transformer, certificate, or gate report in phi 1 references an unknown token not present in the alphabet version ledger, part 3 is violated and the claim is refused or revoked. If any runtime implementation allows an interface socket to be used as if it were implemented content without an explicit registry entry and scope declaration, part 3 is violated and must be revoked. If the token checker or smuggling scanner decisions depend on hidden heuristics or unlocked environment details, Part 3 is revoked and moved to the negative archive until determinism is restored. Episode 14 gave us certified structure. Episode 15 gives us certified becoming. If becoming cannot be certified, it is not public reality. It is only a story. If you want to go deeper, the formal work can be found on Zenodo. Search for Holophase. Always, peace be upon you.